Hello you, welcome to Geekism and welcome back to Planet Zoo. Today we're back in Betaville Zoo, which is our project for the Planet Zoo beta, and we're going to be finishing off our Mandrill enclosure. If you go on to enjoy this one, please let me know by clicking on that like button. It really does help. And if you're new here, of course, don't forget to subscribe for lots of Planet Zoo content in the future. So, in the last episode, we built the walk up to the exhibit. We wanted to sort of make quite a big thing out of this one. Sort of like a big feature exhibit in the zoo, this one. So we had a large walk through rainforest type area, and also, as I said in the last video, I really wanted to make sure that one didn't have an animal in, so I could really go to town with Foliage and not worry about the welfare of any animals and stuff like that. Here, obviously, we are considering the welfare of the Mandrill, and if you didn't see the last episode, or if you want a bit of a refresher, I'm going to try for something really quite realistic here, realistic as far as zoos are concerned. One thing I noticed when looking at a lot of zoo footage, even in quite high-end zoos, a lot of the interiors, a lot of the buildings, a lot of the ground in general, to be honest, is concrete or like hard rock work, which is basically wipe clean. They can hose it down. There's even loads of pictures online of them doing just that, hosing down exhibits and stuff. And I wondered whether or not it was more important for us to be functional than it was to be aesthetically pleasing. And I wanted to kind of just explore that over these couple of episodes with this exhibit. This zoo it's a hot mess, to be honest, Betaville Zoo, because I just wanted to try loads of different things in the beta, pretty much put down all the different animals and try different build styles. So there's some Victorian stuff, there's some realistic stuff, there's some crazy stuff, there's all over the place, there's all sorts of things. But this one, yeah, I've tried to go for a sort of realistic one as far as zoos are concerned. Now, unfortunately, I'm recording this back to back with the previous one, so I haven't been able to see your feedback, excuse me, from the last one. So I hope it was positive. Well, I guess I'll find out. One thing I did say was that I would not time-lapse this. That's not happened, obviously, but what I am doing is really slowing the time lapse down. So basically, I got in the zone and started building, and then about half an hour in, I was like, oh, I said I wouldn't do a time lapse on this one, and I've totally forgot. So this is just 200% speed, okay, so it's just a little faster, but hopefully you can really sort of see some of the sort of techniques I'm using and thought processes I'll try and talk through with you here. One thing I wanted, although mandrills don't need water, I feel like every exhibit should have water. I don't think there should be, unless it's like, you know, a little tortoise or something, I don't think there should be any exhibits for major mammal animals that doesn't have some sort of water feature, instead of just one of those little water bowls, you know. So here, I'm trying. This took so long to do to get this right. The water in this game, once you figure it out, it's fine. But my word, it takes a while to figure it out. What I'm trying to do is build a pond and then completely enclose it in concrete, so it looks like it's just the edge of the place filled up with concrete. I get there eventually, but my word, does it take a while. So the way to do it, the way to get these curved pieces, these slope pieces, excuse me, sorry, I'm yawning my head off. This has been a really long couple of weeks playing beta. The way you do it is using I think they're called plaster. I'm looking for them here. There's a set of walls in the game that aren't on the grid. For some reason, just the one set. Here we are, plaster walls. They're nice and plain at least, so they kind of go with everything. And what I want to try and do here is create a slope for the mandrill to be able to get down and use the water. Now, I'll be honest with you, he doesn't use the water. In fact, he almost died from dehydration before I noticed the fact that he doesn't use this water. I don't know whether it's a mandrill bug, a general beta bug, or probably more likely just that I've built it. You know, I've tried to push the system a little bit by doing something like this, and it might just not register that there's water down there, or the water is accessible. The terrain, it does show that it's walkable terrain right up until the water's edge, but just to fix the problem for now, I just go ahead and end up placing a normal water trough underneath as well anyway, to be honest with you. So here you go. I'm trying to do this. Once the water's down in this game, it's very difficult to affect it and to change it. So I'm trying here just to cover up the ground as much as I can, using this piece without having to go in, remove the water, change the terrain, put it back again. I feel like in the end it's like this. And like I say, that slope is traversable, I suppose is the proper word. So yeah, here I'm just trying to paint over that bit to kind of make it hidden. and it doesn't work. So I end up just pulling up the slope just ever so slightly more here, just to kind of make it smooth on the front there as well, and then place those in. And there we go. That's me done with water. That's enough water for this. So then, mandrills, they are a monkey species. They are relatively terrestrial, meaning they spend a lot of time on the ground, for a monkey at least. Although they do have arboreal traits, meaning they do spend time in trees. They sleep in trees, as you probably would expect, and they also forage in trees for bugs and things like that. As far as their diet goes, they are omnivores, so they eat lots of fruit, leaves. They mostly fruit, to be honest, but they will eat leaves as well. And bugs, insects, invertebrates, scorpions, spiders, that kind of thing. Although it has been known for them to have a tackle at some small mammals as well, such as deer and things like that, if they're really hungry. And also it's been documented that they will eat their own kind as well. Pretty much a mandrill's like me. It'll eat anything it can get its hands on. Sorry, apart from, I should point out that I don't eat humans. I feel like in this day and age on the internet, it requires me to point out, from a legal standpoint, that I don't eat humans. Not anymore. So yeah, we're going into some foliage now. And again, like I said, I really wanted to make this look like a little bit rubbish, to be honest. I actually think the look of it at the end is really quite good, and I think it really looks like a zoo as well, which I think is quite important. But what I really wanted to make sure was that the ground here looked fake, it looked false, it looked created, as opposed to it looking really natural, like what we've done in most of our other builds. Now, obviously, animals outdoors, most ungulates, most the other animals we put down, especially in this biome that's really quite warm, you can have most animals outdoors. Oh, excuse me, with just rain cover, and it's all good, and you can have natural grasses and things. But a lot of zoos, especially the zoos I've been to, because I live in a relatively temperate climate, and always have, and have moved 3,000 miles across the world, but moved to another different temperate climate, if anything, a colder one. Most of the zoos I've got to, most of their tropical animals, most of their sort of equatorial animals are indoors, and this is the kind of thing that they do to look after them. So they do have planting, but that planting has to be done into beds or into areas carved out of concrete, so to speak. So here I think I'm figuring out what am I doing here? Oh, hello. There we go. I think that was like, I'm going to have a break and I'm coming back 10 minutes later. So yeah, we had to make sure that ground looks like it's created and manufactured. There was a update when this video was going out. Planet Coaster. When this video was being recorded, there was an update, 1.3 beta update, and it says that the feeding mechanics have been fixed now, so you can place down food enrichment items, and the keepers will still feed the animals. We'll find out. Interestingly enough, I'm having a little bit of an issue with guests running away from animals. You'll see there at the moment, the guests will walk right up to the edge of that path and stop and watch the animal and look at him and go, that was great, and wander off again. I make absolutely no changes to the exhibit border, to the habitat border. All I do is place climbing things in it and actually cover the path up with glass. And there they all run off and get scared. And it's the same thing that happened with the wild dogs or the timber wolves, I forget which incarnation it was. But yeah, I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. And people are saying, oh, it's because your guests are walking over the null barrier. It's not that. It's not that, because I've seen loads of reports now of people attempting like crossover tunnels, things like Bengal tigers. Famously now, a lot of zoos have crossover tunnels for Bengal tigers where they walk across the path, and that uses null fencing that goes right across that path, and people walk through it in a Bengal tiger exhibit and have absolutely no problems doing it. So it's not that, but I can't figure out what it is. There's something in the game is saying that how I've built this exhibit isn't quite right, and as soon as I can figure out what it is, I'll change it. But at the moment, people now wander all the way through the rainforest, they get right up to the glass and they go, ah, and run off again. But it's beta, the whole thing's getting wiped in a couple of days anyway, so it was fun to build. But yeah, I'm really kind of have to, as soon as we get sandbox mode, and I can go down and really throw some options together and really try and figure out what it is, because that's I don't know whether it's just something in my save file maybe that's just not allowing guests to walk over null barrier. Well, no, it can't be, because they are walking over a null barrier. They're doing it now. As it stands at the moment, it's as soon as he can get up to the path level. Maybe it's something to do with animals being at path level. So paths can go over exhibits and they can go under exhibits, but they can't go like at the same level of exhibits to do this kind of thing. I'm really not sure. I'm going to have to just have a little play around with it once we get into sandbox. But here we go, placing in some foliage then, again, using stuff that we can fit, because we're building indoors here, so a lot of the trees, the things like is it kapok, I think, or kapok, the big dudes. We ain't going to get one of those in here, unfortunately. But we do get some nice palms and stuff, and get quite a good level of shrubbery down there. I think it turns out really quite well. I think we can go do some more. The Mandrill being partly arboreal, they're quite happy to have a lot of floor coverage and tree coverage and stuff, so we kind of fill those areas out as best we can. But I think actually having these little areas to either side with foliage in, and then having the main area relatively empty and open. I mean, it won't end up empty and open because we're going to have a huge climbing structure, but as far as the floor is concerned, having it empty and open, I think it works really well and it looks really realistic. So have a look through some stats here and figure it out. It's just because the game's paused, they all start going up again. The only one that I don't end up filling is the social stats, because unfortunately, every time I looked, there wasn't a single female. I think there might have been like one female for like 500 leaves, and as you can see, I've got about 200 odd. I did have over 1,000, but I spent them on animals for pimp my habitat for the most part. So yeah, I couldn't buy him a lady friend, unfortunately, and I'm assuming that 2 males aren't going to work very well together. There was quite a few males on there, some that I could have afforded, like 100 golf coins, I was going to say. They're not called golf coins. 100 leaf coins. They're not even called that, are they? They're called conservation credits, but let's be honest, they're leaf coins. Yeah, so there's no leaf coins that I could purchase. So here you can see I'm building the thing. Don't worry, like I say, I do cover up the path because this would obviously cause some huge problems if that was open. So yeah, I wasn't able to get him a lady friend, unfortunately, but luckily everything else, the welfare is so high that he's kind of alright on his own. It would have been nice to get a few more in there. In the wild, these things live in huge groups, up to 50 at a time, actually. So obviously it would be nicer to have a larger number of them. But yeah, that's just how franchise modes works, I guess. It isn't going to be a problem in a few weeks because we get sandbox mode and we'll almost exclusively play sandbox mode when it comes to building our zoos and stuff. Like I said before, plans for the channel, by the way, we will play through the career mode because I do quite enjoy career modes in games. I do quite enjoy the sort of limitations they give you, to be honest. I think it can actually spur creativity in some ways, which is why I've played through the Planet Coaster one near enough in full. I didn't play the DLC ones, and I don't think I ever finished the very last level, actually, thinking about it. And Parkitect, of course, we're working our way through. We may get back to that in the future as well. So yeah, I'm actually quite a fan of playing through the campaigns because I think sometimes having a half-built zoo already, or having, a certain terrain limitation or whatever, is actually quite good for creativity because it means you have to sort of solve problems and find solutions, and that's actually a good way to kind of stretch your creative muscles. So I'd recommend it. Even I know a lot of people, especially a lot of people I follow, other YouTubers who sort of exclusively play this kind of gameplay style, always say, I just ignore the campaign, never touch it. Actually, I think it's for me personally, it's actually quite a good way to not only sort of stretch your creative muscles, but also figure out the game as well. There's certain things that you probably wouldn't even know about the game if you hadn't played through campaign mode. For instance, look at how many people didn't realise that you had to change the quality of the food in the actual habitat menu once you've researched it. I guarantee that will have been taught to you in a campaign mode. I mean, obviously we only have the first one there because it's beta, but that would have been taught to you in campaign mode, 100%. So the climbing mechanic then, let's have a little talk about this, because by the end of this video, the Mandrill can climb and does climb all over this. But my god, it's janky. Like, from floating to walking backwards to, like, at some point, like, his arms will just stretch out, like a Stretch Armstrong, stretch out to get a bit that he probably shouldn't be able to reach, or like he'll this bit in particular, this slope that goes up from the ground, he'll specifically just climb up the very one side of it, and up until about halfway up, his left legs touch the ground and his right legs touch the slope, and he just like stretches his body. It's like the bad guy out of Terminator 2. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know whether that's beta. I don't know whether that's limitations of the system. I don't know whether it's that I'm kind of not using it correctly, because I think what you're meant to do is just place a pole down. Okay, whereas I'm placing 2 poles down and then putting loads of little poles in between to make it look like a ladder, and I don't know how good the system is at reading that, and I wonder whether that's the problem. It's you can't really mold these climbing structures quite as much as I would like to, or maybe, yeah. I mean, it is still incredibly impressive that an animal is able to have climbing AI in real time with procedurally generated structures. I mean, that is really impressive, but it does look a little funky at times, and I do wonder whether it is beta and they're ironing out kinks, or just that I'm trying to do too much with the system. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever know, unless they come out and say, "Oh yeah, we've improved the climbing mechanism." I don't think they're ever going to say, "No, you need to not do that," because they never did with Planet Coaster when we did crazy stuff like that would break the game. So I can't imagine they're going to start now. Today, at time of recording, it was World Animal Day, which Planet Zoo, had prepared some stuff for. So we got, I mean, you'll have heard all this now. I'll have done another video on it a couple of days before. But we got the Okapi, which looks fantastic. They have the craziest markings. They have like really cool zebra legs. And also the boat rides, which looks really good as well. The boat ride's on a track and doesn't have a driver, but I feel more okay with that than I do the safari truck not having a track and not having a driver. I don't know why. I feel like it's okay for the boat to be on rails, but not the safari truck. Finishing off the gap here, then I've got a feeling this might be the problem with guests running away, because it's all different buildings and stuff. These last 3 pieces here are their own building just to fill the gaps, and I can only assume that I don't even know how the game registers it, but how knows that this isn't completely secure. I'm just not sure. You'll see a great clip in a bit where I'm trying to get some glamour shots of the Mandrill, and he jumps through the roof. It's ace. Just like a Harry Houdini kind of thing, and just goes up into the roof. It's ace. So here then, just clearing up the other areas. One thing I did actually forget to do, I prepped this area and then never got round to it, is this will be where the sort of information screens are and stuff, you know, the monitors you can place in, and the speakers and all that kind of thing. This is where they would be. And I've just realised now I totally forgot to do it. Like I say, I got the area ready for it and then completely forgot to do it. Instead, I just kind of neaten up the edges here where there's a little bit of Z fighting where the walls meet and stuff. Why those 2 walls line up, I don't know. This building's ended up as a bit of a swan. If you don't know the idea of a swan, the fact that above the water, the swan looks incredibly graceful and beautiful, and under the water, its legs are going 10 to the dozen, and it's trying its hardest to stay afloat. And screenshots and stuff of this building make it look really good, but if you actually click it and realise that it's actually about 16 different buildings, and the glass clips through occasionally, and the mandrill runs out and people run away, and it's definitely a swan. This is definitely a made for YouTube video, made for YouTube building, because in the 10 minutes or 20 minutes I'm showing it you here, it looks pretty good, but if you actually play the game and run it, it just absolutely goes crazy. It's a bit like the Good Place, the start of the Good Place, where it all looks lovely, and then the next day there's giant ladybirds and giraffes everywhere and litter falling out of the sky. So here I'm just sort of covering up the foliage just to kind of tie it in with the rest of the build. I've started doing this quite a bit now with all the different sort of enrichment items. It doesn't seem to bother the staff or the animals. They can still both get to it easily, and it's just a way of sort of making it not look so much like a plonked down thing that it is. So here we place some bedding again in an attempt to sort of get the animal up. Although I think bedding does kind of stop them being able to walk, so I've placed it up in the end here. And he, like I say, does get up there, which I'm sure you'll see in a moment. And then I place in a food thing as well. We only have these yet again. Still, these don't seem to work. I don't even know if it works here, to be honest with you, because I didn't really play the game after building this. I took some shots of the Mandrill and then came out of the game to start editing this. So I don't know whether he gets fed or not. Here's me. Oh, here we go. Look, here's me looking for a female Mandrill. There are two. There is one that's 220, which would have wiped out my leaves, but still it would already gone. And then there was one other that's like just a little too many, 370, and I've got 200 and something, I don't know. So unfortunately he's on his own, but here I'm just checking the numbers, and it literally is the fact. Oh, there I know. Notice that there's nowhere near enough climbing stuff. Look, it's about halfway up in climbing. So we go back and really just, I don't know, again, I'm not too sure how it calculates it. So basically every climbing platform, I just kind of go through and just put a little bit more climbing stuff on it, and it seems to work. In fact, it ends up going from like half done to double. And I obviously don't place double the amount of climbing stuff, so I can only assume that it works from the floor up or something, you know, and sort of spiders out. And at some point here, there was a bit it couldn't get up, but now it can or something. Again, I'm not too sure. Sandbox, I'm sure people who are much more patient and much cleverer than me are going to spend hours in Sandbox sort of really figuring out how these systems work for us plebs who don't. And then we'll be able to know the sort of things that the game expects from us, I guess is what I'm saying. But again, there may well be a career mode that teaches you all about climbing structures. In fact, I probably guarantee there is a career mode where you get to Lemur Island or something, and it's like, we're desperately in need of climbing. The last contractor couldn't touch wood, so you have to do it. Or something like that. Typical career mode. Anyway, there we go. Little last few bits of I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really super realistic, but still doesn't look too drab. It still looks quite interesting. There's lots going on, and obviously the animal has good welfare, which is the main thing. But here's my favourite thing. Here's me trying to... I'm going to leave the whole clip in. Look at that. He's jumping around. Doing pretty well here, actually. This bit he has no problem with. It gets a little cut up here. There we go. But again, manages it pretty well. Decides to turn around. I'm thinking, oh, he's going to get right to the edge of that little platform. Wada! It's a miracle. David Copperfield, eat your heart out. And look at his face. He knows exactly what he's done, look. He knows exactly what he's done, little sod. How about that, eh? Right, thanks very much for watching, folks. Until tomorrow, be good.